Hi, that was weird. So I just went outside to smoke and I got locked out of my flat because I forgot my keys. So thankfully one of my flatmates was just leaving, so I had to get him to let me back in the flat, and I'm here now. And I'm just gonna basically talk about the second half of the lecture from earlier, which was actually the fun part, because the first part was all introductory and quite vague. There wasn't much detail, I guess. I was basically trying to give an overview of the origins of philosophy. Um, yeah, so we didn't go into much detail, but then we did go into this a bit more specifically. So we're talking about Plato, and this is philosophy and religion, by the way. So it's Plato and how Plato sort of influenced the start of Christianity, I guess. And it was Plato who influenced philosophers such as Augustine, and it was Aristotle who influenced Thomas Aquinas. But I'm going to look at Plato, so I'll just try and recall everything that we went through in the lecture earlier, just to make sure it's all in my mind. I'm actually understanding it, which would be nice to be understanding it, I guess. So Plato split the world into two parts, I guess. There was the intelligible and the sensible. So the intelligible world, I guess you could compare to the realm of the forms. It's the perfect world. It's the world of abstract concepts. The world that exists in the mind. Okay, and then the sensible world, which I would say is similar to empiricism. It's the natural world around us, the world that we experience through our senses. And I think there is a distinction between those things. So things that exist in the intelligible world, you could say, is mathematics. So 1 plus 1 equals 2. That's not something we know through sense experience. It's something we know as a means of logic. We don't have to go out and look into the world and find out whether 1 plus 1 does equal 2. We just know that based on the abstract concepts. However, is that knowledge derived from the sensible world? So without the sensible world first being in place, so the empirical world, would we actually have the concept of 1 or 2? And that's a weird question, isn't it? Because that's assuming that if we were to say that those things do exist, independently, or as in that the intelligible world does exist independently from the sensible world, then there would still have to be a perceiver of the intelligible world, and I guess that's why Plato posits that we have a soul that isn't made of matter, because matter is sensible, because it's something that we can experience because it takes up space, whereas the intelligible world doesn't take up space. So there has to be some sort of soul which would be able to comprehend these things. And there's a lot of other things as well that exist in the intelligible world, or the realm of the forms, such as beauty and justice, and truth. Okay, so again, these are concepts that we can understand in and of themselves almost as perfect things, and then we apply these concepts to the world around us. And it's debatable again as to whether these are concepts that exist in and of themselves, perhaps a priori before experience, or if they come a posteriori after experience of the world. So it's interesting. I think I would probably say that these concepts come after experience. That's probably what I believe. I don't think that these concepts are necessarily exist independently from the material world, although they do in some sense, but without there being any material world whatsoever, without there being us, I don't think these concepts would exist. And perhaps that's because there would be no one there to see them. And maybe that does say something about my beliefs about reality. I think maybe it's so hard to comprehend this. So I'd say I'm a dualist in that I do believe Plato in that there are abstract things that aren't material, and these are realities. But I don't think those realities are distinct. They are distinct, they're distinct from the material world because they're different. They exist in a different sort of way to the material world, but they're intertwined with the material world in a strange way. And I think the fact that I think it's just the human mind which is able to, I guess, abstract them from the material world. So we're able to notice things within the world, and then we're able to derive the concepts from things that we see, from actions. And I guess this links to, so that, what was it? There was this mythos, which is a Greek word for like myths, narratives, stories. Okay? And within these stories, these, I guess, archetypes or actions are displayed. They're played out. Okay, so for example, hero mythology, right? So it might not necessarily be a myth about an actual person, but it's a myth which suggests something about the real world, about a way of acting in the world, right? And then we can abstract out the concepts from what's actually happening in the world. So if someone was to do, say, be a hero, you know, we might, what exactly would we characterize as the hero? We would say that they do good things, that they save people, that they help people. And then we could say that there is also a villain, you know, and a villain is like a bad person. And then obviously there's a thing there as to whether there's some sort of form of the bad, you know, where we can abstract out the bad or the evil and say that that is a concept in itself, which I think we can. Or we could take like an Augustinian approach and say that it's simply an absence of the good, so that there are only forms of the good. And I think Plato did only say that there were forms of good, like justice and beauty. And good was, the form of the good from the cave story was represented by the sun. And that's the ultimate form. That's the all-encompassing form of all of the other forms which come below that, which include beauty and justice and love. Yeah, so, and so let me try and link this to Christianity. So Plato talked about these forms, you know, these ways of being, which I guess were influenced by the mythos. And then Christianity almost adopts this Platonic view of the world, you know, as part of its own narrative, and says, and almost attributes all of these different abstract, intelligible concepts to this one being called God. And then that's me also suggesting that God doesn't necessarily exist as an objective being. Rather, we have just attributed all of these different good concepts and the ideal version of these concepts to this being. I think it does make sense to say that because there are, I don't know, I guess there are varying degrees of the concepts being acted out in the world. And I guess what I mean by that is that some people are more good than others. Some actions are more good than others, better than. And the fact that we can notice better than and worse than in the world perhaps suggests that maybe there's a limit. Maybe there is an ultimate good. That all of these other goods that we notice around us but can't quite get there because we can't attain perfection within the material world because the material world is inherently flawed. Perhaps there is, you know, an abstract reality that all of these material world are simply copies of. They're simply like mimicking this good, but they're not actually it because that is unattainable. Okay, so, but that's the only way I really understand Plato as being, you know, a part of Christianity, and I guess it's because I haven't read enough of Plato. You know, I don't know enough. Is that a good thing that I don't know enough? Maybe it's a good thing. I want to know more. You know, I want to understand. I want to find truth. Maybe I just want to find truth because that's what I've been told I need to find, or maybe that's an objective thing that I need to do. Maybe that's just an important thing that we ought to be searching for truth rather than falsity and lies. And the fact that I want to do that, and the fact that a lot of people want to do that, almost makes it seem like an objective fact. You know, we can be ignorant, and that's fine. But if you're posed with an undeniable truth, it's very hard to actually maintain ignorance in the face of that truth. Because, you know, you can't avoid it. It's not something you can just sort of tiptoe around. And maybe I'm just saying that because of my own experiences with this, but, you know. Okay, so this isn't necessarily perhaps where I thought the video was going to go. Maybe it's because I don't have enough clarity in my mind to be able to, I guess, talk about it chronologically or in a logical way. But yeah, it's interesting. So some key terms we've looked at are metaphysics, which I guess is the study of reality, the study of the natural world, the study of what exists, the nature of reality, all of that. Ontology, the study of being, which comes under metaphysics because it's also what exists, you know. What other words have we looked at? Epistemology, which is knowledge. We looked at value and ethics. And all of these are different sorts of areas that we're going to be studying in a lot more detail. And hopefully getting closer to the truth, which is, I guess, what philosophers want to do. And maybe I'm a little bit nihilistic, and maybe I'm struggling to, I guess, value that at the minute, which is weird. I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah, anyway, I haven't got much recording time left. I should have deleted the previous video off my phone so I could actually record a little bit longer, but I think I've talked long enough. Yeah, so hopefully maybe you'll see throughout the course of me making these videos alongside my university studies, hopefully you'll see and I'll see that I'm actually getting more clarity and, you know, I'm able to talk about things in a more logical way. So thank you for watching anyway, and subscribe if you're new.